Hello, American Africans, my family. It is an honor to speak with you all today about our name, American Africans, Descendants of Slaves, DOS. So let's jump right on into this. So, why do we have the word American first? Well, that's our location, that's our homeland. This is where our ancestors were brought to. This is where we've been for hundreds of years. Why do we need the word African after American? There were archaic words used to describe different humans, and this is a part of the English language, as you know, and these humans were based on their race. It started as three, and then it went to six, so it was Mongoloid, Caucasoid, Congoid, or otherwise known as Negroid, and then it increased to include the Capoid and the Mercoid and Australoid. Again, these are old archaeological human classifications that we no longer use. We've evolved over time and they're actually considered offensive. So I just have to let you guys know that. But anyway, the reason why I mentioned them is because it actually goes in context with my next point. And basically the origin or the how they're defined and how they were created, although archaic and offensive as they are, they're originally based on geographical location, migration pattern, and physiological traits for humans that evolved over time. These top six physical traits used to determine the human classification are skin tone, nasal width, base, eye color, hair color, and texture, and then muscle density. So the phenotype for the Caucasian, who are the original implementors of the system of white supremacy. They're the light skin, narrow nose, light eyes, light and straight hair, the lean muscle mass, and the thin lips. So those are the six top physical traits for the Caucasoid or the Caucasian. What you may not know is that these physical traits are not only traits that you can see with your eyes, they're also traits that you can't see with your eyes, and they're actually physically embedded within the code of our DNA. So when you think of a particular human characteristic, a physical trait, their DNA can actually be sliced and diced, and you can actually reverse engineer their genome or their DNA to come up with a human that looks a specific way with specific physical characteristics. Again, this is the system of white supremacy. I did not come up with this. It's completely irrelevant, but they made this system up and structured it and set up so that they know who to dominate. Again, I did not create this. We are in this system, and but thus we must abide by it. And until it's dismantled, we have to kind of understand and know what it's used for and why it's used against us. When you slice and dice it and you extract the human genome, the DNA, and you deconstruct it and then reconstruct it using human imaging equipment, you can actually identify these indicators and markers and combine them back together again and create the physical human that you see with your eyes. Basically, if you reverse engineer the code, you come up with a specific human with a specific set of human physical traits. Which brings me to the African DNA. This one is very confusing because you have African DNA, but the human may look Caucasian. And how is this? How can you be Caucasian and African at the same time? It's not possible. Well, actually it is. Remember, we're in the system of white supremacy. Moroccans and Egyptians are pretty much a great example of this, where you can be nearly 100% African, but still be of the Caucasian DNA. And under the system of white supremacy, because it's meant to confuse you, it makes this a little bit convoluted. So the term African became pretty much a blanket term to refer to all humans from this particular continent or this particular place or area, when in fact it complicated the classifications because it replaced the other archaic terms such as Congoid and Negroid, which were used to specify Africans from a specific area, which were sub-Saharan African. So this confusion was put in place to both define and not define a group of people. The system, obviously, as you know, is set up to treat you unfairly based on your physical characteristics. But if you're not able to properly define those specific characteristics, or it's convoluted, or you're not sure, then you just have to kind of revert back to how a person looks, basically, with those six physical characteristics that I mentioned earlier. So basically, the further Caucasian you look, the more oppressed you are under the system of white supremacy, meaning the complete opposite is the most oppressed. So if you accept that humans with the most opposite of the Caucasian are the most oppressed, then you kind of understand where you place in the system of white supremacy. Going back to the African term, so we use that African term to basically specify a specific set of phenotype that is completely opposite of the Caucasian. Let's look at some examples. I'm sure you all know Luna. She's the cute little girl of Chrissy Teigen and John Legend. Now, we all know John Legend is black. We don't know if he's American African DOS, but let's assume he is for the sake of this example. This makes Luna an American DOS. If you notice that I left out the term African, and I intentionally left it out to show you that anyone with lineage can claim American DOS status and not actually have the physical traits of the disenfranchisement that the African traits are subjected to. So John Legend's daughter, Luna, is a phenotypical Asian. So without the term African, Luna classifies as an American DOS based on her father's ancestral lineage back to the transatlantic slave trade. Again, this is assuming that he is in fact AADOS. Using the same example, Luna cannot classify as an American African DOS because she is Asian, right? She has the indicators and markers and DNA of Asian, not African. Thus, she's not entitled to claim AADOS status. She's either Asian or she can claim mixed race. Another example of an American DOS would be Derek Jeter. And I'm going to say rather that he may be possible because, again, I don't know if his black parent has roots in the transatlantic slave trade. But again, for the sake of argument, let's just say his black parent does. Well, Derek Jeter doesn't qualify because he's mixed race. Whether or not his black parent is AADOS, it doesn't really matter because he's not. He's mixed race. I'm using these people intentionally because I want you to see how important it is to have the term African within that category. The same example goes for Meghan Markle. Now, Meghan Markle can claim to be American DOS, but she cannot claim to be African, or rather American African DOS due to her mixed race. This kind of brings us to a rabbit hole. I don't want you guys to fall down it because, again, all about confusion, but this is a rabbit hole and I need to make this clear. It's a quick note, but if you're 60% or more African DNA, then you're considered African. If you're 59% or less, then you're considered mixed race or whatever majority percentage of that other race you are. Now, this is my perspective. This is based on my research on DNA markers and indicators and traits. And my conclusion was based on the DNA markers and indicators and based on physical traits conducive of a 60% quotient. So I'm using these celebrities because everybody knows them. So just to go back, when we say African, we're referring to the phenotypical human that looks completely opposite of the Caucasian. Moving on to the last portion, the reason why I put parentheses around the DOS is because I hope that we eventually drop the DOS portion once reparations is enacted and distributed to the correct lineage. Again, in the system of white supremacy, the whiter you look, meaning the more Caucasian you look, the more advantaged you are, and thus the system treats you as such. And the more African you look, or should I say the more opposite of the Caucasian you look, the more disadvantaged you are under the system of white supremacy. So again, it's based on your DNA markers and indicators, which in turn manifest as the physical human traits that we see. And just to repeat, eventually in the future, I hope that we're just called American Africans, but I know that in the meantime, we really need that DOS classification because it lets the world know and understand who we are, where we're from, what we're owed, why we're owed it, and who exactly owes us. Remember, words have meaning. Family, please subscribe to this YouTube channel and don't forget to hit the thumbs up button to like this video. Feel free to share the link with other members of our tribe. And please leave a comment below. I really want to hear your thoughts. And that wraps up today's message. I want to thank each and every one of you. I appreciate your time, and I hope today's message uplifts, inspires, and elevates you. Goodbye, family.